Welcome to Living Fun podcast. Today I have the pleasure of bringing Jonathan Lowenberg on the chat. He's got an amazing life journey, and he's been a dear friend for a number of years. And one of the things I really enjoy when I connect with Jonathan is every time there's a story to tell, there's a life experience, and the excitement he brings to our coffee gatherings in New York City is something that I always look forward to. And with that intro, Jonathan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your story?
Fir- First of all, Rob, I want to thank you for those coffees. And I know we switched venues last couple of weeks ago from downtown to uptown. But now that I'm not traveling downtown as much, I appreciated you coming up, and I love our coffee dates. And quite frankly, we could have done this over coffee, but we're doing it over Zoom, modern times. And be that as it may, I'm looking forward to working with you on this wonderful podcast that you are offering others. My story really, the way I look at my story is kind of to steal from a historical timeline, BC and AC, before cancer and after cancer. And the date really was January 2012 when that shifted from BC to AC. Before 2012, I was your typical investment banker on Wall Street, and I spent many years in the equity capital markets raising capital for companies, mostly in the healthcare space, biotech, medical devices, services. And I spent a vast amount of my career doing that at a variety of platforms, UBS and some smaller boutiques where I ran the groups. And life was good. I was a yogi. I was a golfer. I was spending lots of time in Central Park, doing my walks in the morning, and living my New York dream, sort of. The dream that I thought I was living in some respects. And then January 2012, my whole world turned. And that was when I got diagnosed with stage 3 stomach cancer. And the AC part of my life became the next steps, getting through the cancer and then changing my entire direction career-wise and moving into the new chapter of which I am most excited about.
Uh, how did your life change when you were diagnosed? What did you do different? What was your pursuit to try to figure out how to cure it, overcome it, and what changes have stuck with you?
So, I'll tell you, just to bring me back to January 2012, in the middle of the night, I had a stomach pain. And like we all get once in a while, I thought it might have been just gas. Um, but my premonition, knowing my body, I was a very, very deep, very intense yogi at that time. And I had a really good feel of my body and things that were going on. And I had this premonition that something's just not right. And I ended up texting a very dear friend of mine who's a doctor in the middle of the night, and he told me to get right to a GI in the morning, of which I did. And the GI did an X-ray and a sonogram, and both were negative. And he said, "I think you're good to go." And I told the doctor, "I'm not good to go. There's something going on. Is there anything else that we can do?" And he said, "We could do an endoscopy if you'd like." And I said, "I want an endoscopy." And sure enough, he did the endoscopy, and I had a stage 3 tumor sitting in my stomach. It was life changing. I had to recalibrate my focus. I was blessed with having been in the healthcare space. Obviously, as a banker, I was blessed to have a lot of people to lean on, friends, family who had some of the top doctors in New York in the space that I was in. And I put together a team from Memorial Sloan Kettering and Weill Cornell, and I pursued the journey of getting better and healing myself. And that was a big change for me, changing the direction of hustling every day and banking and raising money and pitching and doing deals to saving my life. I mean, as Bob Dylan said, knocking on heaven's door. I mean, he said it best. I was knocking on heaven's door, and I had to take my life in a different direction to cure myself. And that was through obviously Western medicine, chemotherapy. I had major surgery. I had a total gastrectomy. My entire stomach was removed. And I had lots of lots of different medicinal trials. I was on a trial from NIH and Weill Cornell trial drug. And before I went to surgery, I got the three letters that every cancer patient is looking for, and that was NED, no evidence of disease. And the chemotherapy had a full response. And I went into my surgery, had more chemotherapy after surgery, and almost 15 years later, here I am. And I take every day like it's a blessing.
That's amazing. How did you know to do the endoscopy when the other test had shown negative? Because, like, you know yourself, sure, but it's like pain in one day. It was not so severe. And I don't know, a lot of people I know, including maybe myself, were like, great, negative. I did the test. I'm good to go.
Rob, it's one of those questions that you hear people talk about. You have to be your own advocate in healthcare, and it's true. I was my own advocate. I actually don't know what made me ask for that third test, because I think a lot of people would have taken the doctor's you know, prescription, if you will, and say you're good to go. Those two tests are negative. And if not, the third test was asked for, we would not be having this podcast, obviously. And so for me, it was something inside. It was a greater force, I believe, that asked the doctor, please let's go one step further. And that step further, I think it was a shock to him as well. I walked in incredible shape, eating well. I mean, I was a yogi, like I mentioned. I was a yogi, a golfer, a walker, eating well, in incredible physical shape. I was not the poster child for this cancer, and yet that was sitting inside my stomach. So I don't know. It's a wonderful question. I don't really have an answer for you, except that thank God and the powers that be, I did ask for that other test, and sure enough, that's kind of what was needed for me to find this out. Even so, it was at a late stage. I mean, it was already at stage three. So yeah.
So that is unbelievable. By the way, one of the things I'm really curious about is advocacy. Because you walk into a hospital or into a healthcare system, a doctor's office, you may be dealing with a new thing, such as these pains that you just felt overnight. And you had the resources in terms of access to people and being in New York City to begin with, plus working in the healthcare investment banking world. The average person walks in, it's hard for them sometimes to even get a hospital bed or a room, let alone getting the right team of doctors. And then when they hear what's going on from the doctor, it can be overwhelming.
Yes.
Any thoughts on advocacy? Anything you've seen that's worked other than
I, I think there's nothing wrong with questioning doctors. I think doctors are incredible, especially at the institutions that I was so lucky to be part of in my journey. And not everybody is as lucky to get to those places. And the doctors that I had, it was part of my success of getting through this. However, I will say that you have to keep asking questions, and you have to, because there is no black and white in medicine. I believe it's very gray, and they're taught certain things to do. But listen, without AI, and maybe we'll talk a little about AI, but without AI, a doctor is going by either what he or she has read, taught, or has seen in their practice. But I think eventually with AI, and I do believe it's going to help enormously in certain areas of medicine, you're now going to have a lot more data to work with. And I think that's going to really sort of help with not only physicians' determinations, but it's going to help in the advocacy of patients because then patients are going to be able to potentially have more data to work with. And there's good and bad there, there's no doubt about it, but I think the net will be positive. The more information you can go into when you're speaking to a physician, I think the better.
How long were you battling the cancer?
So after I was diagnosed in January 2012, I went through a 3-month chemotherapy regimen where I had 5 different chemotherapies that were going through my body, both intravenously, through shots, through pills. It was a lot. And then after 3 months, I went into the surgery, which was an enormous surgery. I had my entire stomach removed. Then, on top of that, after surgery, I had 2 major complications from surgery. One is called a pulmonary embolism, where people die from that in and of itself. I had a blood clot to the lung, and I had to go on Lovenox shots for months to remove the blood clot. And then what I had was called a Peterson's hernia, where it's not an inguinal hernia that many of us get. It's where the bowel twists, and that also kills many people a year. So they had to reopen me and untwist the bowel. So my surgeons basically said I'm like Humpty Dumpty, and I just don't fall. Because if you think about it, cancer could have killed me, the pulmonary embolism could have killed me, and then of course the Peterson's hernia could have killed me. So I don't know. It wasn't my time. Um, um, and divine intervention came into play and helped me. And I really went through, I would say, with all those post-surgical complications and then surgery and then more chemo, I would say it was a 9 month to a year journey of focusing on healing myself. And again, the chemotherapy and the surgery were part of it. I'm a very, very big believer in Eastern medicine. And like your podcast says, eating well, wellness of not just the internal, but the brain, the mind, played a huge role in, I believe, my success in getting through this part of this cancer journey for me. Um, I think my mind was a very strong uh, organ and helped me fight this.
So I met you after you had gone through majority of this, and I always just assumed you got into yoga and some of the other approaches to life after you were dealing with it. So I didn't realize it
No.
was already something you were doing. So were there any other major changes that you made style wise?
Oh yeah, after the in the AC portion of my life, yes. After
Yep.
I got through this, many changes occurred. First, I got out of investment banking. um, I realized that the stress of banking, um, from the standpoint of I was a specialist, so I was a private equity placement specialist, which means that I had a whole host of industry bankers calling on me to do pitches and to structure and close, their equity deals. And so I was I used to be called to go to China for a day or California for a day. I mean, this was a brutal, brutal existence. And I think from sure financially it was wonderful. But life is a lot more than just your finances. And I think for me, it wasn't feeding my soul. It was not really what I was meant to be or to do. And so one of the major changes I did after cancer was to shift and to get into areas that I felt were giving back to the world so that I can nurture my soul. And we'll talk about it when you're ready. But that's kind of what brought me to what I do now, which is the most exciting part of my life from a career standpoint I've ever been in. And I finally
But
met my I finally met my match.
Let's do it. Let's get right into it. Talk to us a little bit about what you're up to these days.
So
And
these days, part of the reason why I got into Medicare advisory is that insurance played a huge part of my recovery. If you really think about it from a standpoint of, sure, there's the medicinal aspect, but there's also the insurance aspect, right? I mean, if you don't have the right insurance, it could drain you. And my bills were in excess of seven figures from the standpoint of, the surgeries, the hospital, the chemotherapies, and everything else all in. And my total out of pocket was probably approximately $13,000. I would do it again and again. God forbid I have to. But my point there is that having insurance and having catastrophic coverage, especially, is enormously, enormously important. And when I realized how important it was, and I realized how important it was as part of my cure and my journey, I started to look into areas of insurance that I can, because I love selling, I love people, and I really wanted to help people. And I came across through a friend this whole aspect of Medicare. And it was foreign to me at the time, but it was a segment that I thought would be really interesting to work in because it's 65 plus, as you know. You enter Medicare at 65, most people, if you're not working. And I realized that this is a new thing for everyone. Like most people have never heard of Medicare, even as they enter the world of Medicare. And so I thought, wow, what a great thing to do is become a specialist in an area that no one knows about and truly help people. Like when I was a banker, CEOs generally knew more about their companies than I did. So I'd go in there and I'd make a pitch and we'd win business and we'd help them raise capital. But the truth is, I was helping them, but I wasn't really helping them in the manner of giving them information that they might not have already known. It didn't resonate with me. Now that I'm in Medicare, I mean, I literally are helping people navigate, get through it, and then I'm there for them for the rest of their life. When they have questions, we recalibrate, we look at their drugs to see whether the plan matches their drugs each year. We look at the network to see if it matches up with their doctors each year. We change plans if necessary. I mean, there's a whole host of things that go into Medicare entree and then through your life that having someone that's not overseas where you're not going to get the love and attention. This is what has been the most incredible part for me of this career is that I don't look at it as a job. Like I look at it as helping people. And this is what's so incredible for me in terms of like nurturing my soul, and the AC portion of my career.
so, when does a person start looking into Medicare? And then what are the different options that they have?
So Medicare is generally it's obviously it's when you turn 65. So there's a 7 month initial enrollment period window that you enroll in Medicare if you're not working. There are certain rules and regulations with respect to if you're working for a company greater than 20 employees and you're on that group plan, you generally don't have to enroll in Medicare at that point. Okay. You can roll in Medicare Part A, which is hospital coverage, if you don't have what's called a health savings account. Not to get too much in the weeds, but generally speaking, those that are not on group plans greater than 20 are enrolling in Medicare Part A and B, and then I basically help them do that. I teach them what that is, and then I guide them on the different structures and plans that we do what's called a needs analysis, and everyone is really bespoke in terms of what their need is. And husbands and wives can have different structures as well. So you're very individual when you go into Medicare. And I basically help decipher the mail and calls that everyone's getting as they start to turn 65, and I become their personal advisor. And I started this business doing seminars. In fact, yesterday I walked by the Mexican restaurant where I did my first seminar. And now I do seminars. I have a huge amount of referrals. I joined up with my university, Emory University, and they co-sponsor alumni Medicare events for me. So it's just been a wonderful. I'm in 15 states throughout the country now, so I have clients all throughout the country, and I basically advise them on how to enter Medicare. And then I continue the journey through all the annual enrollment periods each year, if one needs a switch. I also take calls when there's issues, lots of calls when clients need help. I'm there to assist them.
So I assume there are plans that allow you to stay with, certain type of doctors that you want to stay with versus other plans that maybe you go into like a PPO type scenario.
Yeah, so Medicare really has two structures. There's what's called original Medicare and a supplement, which allows you to go to any doctor that accepts Medicare assignment. So there's no network. You pay for that. There's a premium for that supplement. That's the most flexibility with respect to doctors. Then the next structure is called Medicare Advantage plans, which is very similar to plans that we're all on throughout our lifetime, and whether it's a career or even on the ACA exchange. It's a structured plan, like you mentioned, PPO, HMO, where there's a network. And so that's where I take an intake form from my clients with all their doctors, pharmaceuticals, and then we match that up to the best structured plan that has their doctors in network. If it's a PPO, they can go out of network, but there's usually, higher co-share and co-insurance and co-pays for services outside of network. But generally, those are the two structures of Medicare that people go on, and it's pretty uniform throughout the states. Different plans, but those are the two structures: original Medicare, Medicare Advantage plan.
Do people tend to let go of the insurance they had prior to joining Medicare?
When you join Medicare, you must let go, obviously, or cancel your existing plan that you have as you enter Medicare. And yeah, that's just standard. You don't have two healthcare plans at the same time.
And overall, on average, would you say that people spend less or more when they join Medicare
It's
versus?
it's it's a really, really great question. So the premiums for individual plans today, as you know, are skyrocketing. Even on the ACA exchange. I mean, they're really they've gotten double-digit increases, and they're getting super costly. What people can't believe is that for lower cost premium wise, as well as usually for their Part B, unless they have what's called an income related monthly adjustment, because higher earners pay more for Part B. But even at the highest level, plus a supplement, you're still at lower cost from a premium perspective than you were, generally speaking, in your private plan pre-Medicare. More importantly, if you go on original Medicare and a supplement, you're 100% covered subject to a $283 deductible. That's an annual deductible. So you don't have co-pays, co-insurances, costs associated with the supplement original Medicare structure. Medicare Advantage plan, you'll pay your Part B, but generally speaking, there's very low premiums for those structures. So you'll pay as you go. But even in that structure, your premiums will be much less than you were paying for your traditional insurance plan pre-Medicare. So yes, I mean, as you can tell, I'm passionate about the subject, and I don't want to turn 65 yet because I love staying younger, but I can't wait to be on Medicare from a healthcare perspective. So I tell my clients that all the time. I'm like, I can't wait to be on Medicare. It's a wonderful structure, for lower cost.
And you can tailor, with the help of someone like yourself, help tailor a plan that's very close to what you want or have, but also save some money.
Yes, sir. And what's great about it is that New York is what's called a guaranteed issue state. Obviously, I'm licensed in, like I mentioned, 15 states throughout the country, and there's only a few that are guaranteed issue. That means that you can start on a Medicare Advantage plan, and down the road, if you'd like to move to a supplement, there's no healthcare questionnaire. It's guaranteed issue. Whereas in a lot of other states, that's not the case. So these are I bring these up because an advisor obviously will bring this up to folks, and a lot of people don't really understand this. It's impossible to understand without having the knowledge base of Medicare. And so um, I love knowing a lot about it, and I love imparting this wisdom for my clients and helping them navigate the vicissitudes of this really new structure for everyone. No one knows. It's one thing when you're at a company and you switch companies and there's a different health plan. You're used to it because HR department will present a plan to you, and maybe it's a different issuer, but generally speaking, it's the same structure. Here, it's all new. There's letters A, B, C, D. These are all new letters for everyone. So I have to kind of teach and be a professor of Medicare for my clients, and it's wonderful. And I love the reviews I get, and I love the referrals I get, and it's less for an ego and much more of a soulful nurturing for me, and I love it.
Love that. So I'm curious if you've come across any either insurance companies or Medicare plans, or I guess those are the two options that take into account living a healthier lifestyle and create
Yes and
incentives
no.
around that.
Yes and no. I think when you're on original Medicare with a supplement, there's no managed care component to that. So I would say there's less wellness and health management, or they try to manage, if you will, which is a good thing, I think, in original Medicare and a supplement. Within the Medicare Advantage plans, yes, there are first of all, there are annual physicals involved in a Medicare Advantage plan where there's no annual physical if you're in original Medicare anymore, which is helpful. There's also rewards in a lot of these plans for rewarding folks for doing better, giving themselves better health by lots of different ways. So yeah, they're moving in that direction. I think at the end of the day, it's really a personal decision on whether you want to prevent or you want to diagnose after the fact. And I think preventative medicine is hopefully going to be a huge part of our future because the more we prevent, the less we will have healthcare needs. And that's through diet and exercise, and the mind is a very big part of that. I think mindfulness, and as you so eloquently title in your podcasts, the mind is a very powerful organ that gets under nurtured at times. And I think the more we nurture the mind, the healthier we will be.
So coming from a healthcare background as a banker, to then going through your own healthcare journey to doing what you do now, I love the trajectory of that. Um, how 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 do you live your life in terms of maybe food, sleep, exercise, and how has that changed over the years?
So I was generally a good eater. I would say I ate more carbs than I probably should have. I was a big pizza pasta guy, and I still have my
Can't live
pizza
in New
and
York
pasta.
without being a little bit of that. So
Cannot. Part of my after cancer journey and my current part of my personal life is that I have a girlfriend who is wonderful, has added a tremendous amount of wellness to my life in terms of her acumen on her vegan lifestyle. And not that I'm a vegan, but she's an amazing cook and has uh, enabled me to really focus on lots of veggies. We garden now. Another part of my BC and AC lifestyle was I was a New York guy. I still obviously am, but she lives in New Jersey and we garden together now. She has an amazing garden. She's been doing it for years, and we together grow all of our vegetables for the entire summer from our garden. And even some fruits. We had strawberries last year. So, these things have changed in my life in terms of like focusing on a lot more greens. I still do a lot of physical fitness, a little less yoga, but I tend to go to the gym more now. I do every day. I walk in the park every morning. I'm in Central Park. I'm an avid golfer. And I try to create less stress in my life. Um, and part of that is talking to people like you who bring good energy to me. And I think that there's a part of what I've realized in life that as you get older, that people have a big impact on your well-being. And the more people you can align with that have good energy, the better your soul will be. And I get it from my business now. I get great people, obviously, who are nurturing my soul. I surround myself with friends and family who nurture my soul. I've distanced myself from certain people who don't nurture my soul anymore. And so I think we all focus on fitness and food, but friends and family who nurture your soul is part of that trifecta of good health.
I love that. In my own life, I can echo a lot of what you just described, particularly around, as you get older, people either bring energy to you or take it away, and you'd rather be around people that are bringing energy,
There's no
positive
doubt about
energy.
it. Absolutely.
And Jonathan, you're one of those people. I super
Thank you.
appreciate you coming on and chatting with me, and ask for maybe a little quarter share of your community garden that you're growing out in New Jersey.
You got it. I'll bring you some vegetables next time. If I see you for coffee. You've got that done. Rob, I'm so
Terrific.
proud. I'm so proud of you and your venture fund and your podcast and what you're doing for society as well and the give back and I've watched some of the other guests you've had and it's really a terrific podcast and I hope this gets out to lots of subscribers in the future because this is a really great platform you set up.
Perfect, Jonathan. And maybe last thing you could share is where we can reach you. I'll put it in the links, but go ahead and share.
Yeah, so my company is Wise Wellness Partners. My phone number is 917-419-3944. It's Jonathan at wisewellnesspartners.com is my email and website wisewellnesspartners.com. And sure, share the information. And we're always here to help anyone turning 65 and navigating Medicare. It would be our pleasure.
Thank you, Jonathan.